Up on Blackwood Hill, where the trees grew crooked, the wind always seemed to howl. There lived a thing. Nobody knew what to call it. Not quite a person, not quite a monster. Something lost in between. It had the body of a tall, thin scarecrow, cobbled from mismatched parts. One arm was long and spindly, like a willow branch, while the other was short and thick, like a stump. Its legs were just as odd, making it shamble and lurch with an uneven, dragging gait. Whenever it moved through the overgrown cemetery, that was its home. The truly terrible part, its head. It was a great lumpy sack like a burlap bag stuffed with wet leaves and mud. There were no eyes to see with, no nose to smell with, and no mouth to speak with. Yet somehow you could feel it watching. You could feel its presence like a cold spot on a summer day. From deep within that sack-like head came a sound, a low, guttural moan that was half a sob and half a hum. It was a sound that crawled under your skin, and honestly stayed there long after you ran away. This thing, this ghost of the hill, would often be seen at dusk. It would stand silently among the tilting, moss-covered tombstones. The fear of the sackhead ghost was a living thing in the town of Oakhaven. It was a story told around campfires, a dare whispered in schoolyards, a reason to hurry home before the streetlights flickered on. When kids played hide-and-seek in the fading light, someone would always joke, "Don't hide too well or the sackhead will find you first." The laughter that followed was always a little too loud, a little too nervous. A farmer, mending a fence at the edge of his property, would see it moving through the trees and quickly pack his tools, his heart pounding in his chest. A group of teenagers, trying to prove their bravery by driving up the winding road to the cemetery, would see its form silhouetted against the moon. They would scream and slam on the gas, speeding away and leaving a cloud of dust and their courage behind them. The stories they told later would be exaggerated, each telling making the ghost taller, its moans louder, its presence more menacing than before. The sounds were the worst part for most. That haunting hum was a constant reminder of the strangeness on the hill. It was a sound that seemed to leak into the world from some other, sadder place. People would hear it and imagine terrible things. They pictured a monster, a creature of pure malice. The ghost was the king of a lonely kingdom, the sole inhabitant of an island of fear. Inside the lumpy, sack-like head, there was not a monster. There was a soul, and that soul was terribly, achingly lonely. Every time someone screamed and ran, a piece of it chipped away. Every time a door slammed shut or a curtain was drawn, a cold draft blew through its heart. It saw its own reflection in puddles after a rainstorm. The mismatched body, the awful, shapeless head. It understood the fear, but understanding didn't make the pain any less real. It just wanted a friend. It would watch the town from the top of the hill, a silent observer of a life it could never join. It saw children playing tag in a sunlit park, their laughter like tiny bright bells. It saw families gathering for picnics, spreading checkered blankets on the grass, sharing sandwiches. It saw friends walking arm in arm, sharing secrets and smiles. The groaning hum that everyone found so terrifying was its attempt to join in. A sad, broken song meant to say, "I'm here, can you see me?" The ghost's sorrow was a heavy cloak it wore day and night. It would collect things, a lost marble, a brightly colored feather, a single child's mitten dropped on the path. It would keep them in a hollow log. Sometimes it would hold the mitten and imagine the warmth of the hand that had once been inside. In a small house at the very edge of town, right where the manicured lawns gave way to the wild woods of Blackwood Hill, lived a girl named Alara. She was 10 years old with quiet eyes and a spirit that was more curious than cautious. Unlike the other children, Alara didn't run from scary stories. She leaned in closer, wanting to know the why behind the what. From her bedroom window, she had a clear view of the hill and the old cemetery. She had seen the strange figure many times, a dark shape moving against the twilight sky. While other people shivered and looked away, Alara watched. She saw the ghost's slow, dragging walk. She saw it tracing the names on the tombstones. She saw it sitting alone for hours, a statue of sadness. She noticed that it never came down the hill. It never chased anyone. It never did anything that was actually threatening. It just existed. and it seemed sad. One evening, a fierce autumn storm rolled through Oakhaven. Rain lashed against her window pane, and the wind howled like a wolf. Through the sheets of rain, Alara saw the ghost. It was standing in the middle of the cemetery, unprotected from the storm. In that moment, Alara felt a powerful pang of sympathy. It looked so lost, so completely and utterly alone. That night, Alara made a decision. Fear was a story you told yourself, she thought. But sadness was real. You could see it. You could feel it. The next day dawned gray and damp, the world washed clean by the storm. Alara waited until the late afternoon, when the light began to soften and the shadows grew long. In her pocket, she clutched a small, hand-carved wooden bird her grandfather had made for her. It was her favorite possession, a small token of comfort and love. With her heart thumping a nervous rhythm against her ribs, she slipped out her back door and started up the path toward Blackwood Hill. The air grew colder as she climbed, the familiar sounds of town fading behind her. She found the ghost standing near the hollow log she had seen it visit before. It was arranging a small pile of acorns with its long, spindly finger, its back to her. The low humming sound was soft, almost inaudible. Alara's courage almost failed her. Its shape was just as strange up close, the mismatched body and the lumpy, featureless head even more unsettling in person. Every instinct told her to turn and run, to go back to the safety of her warm home. But then she remembered the sight of it standing alone in the rain, and she took another step forward.
Hello?
The ghost froze. Its humming stopped instantly. Slowly, agonizingly, it turned. The burlap sack of a head swiveled toward her. There were no eyes, but Alara felt its full attention on her. She could feel a wave of shock and surprise coming from it, so powerful it was like a physical force. No one had ever spoken to it before. No one had ever come this close willingly. It stood perfectly still, as if it was afraid she might vanish like a dream. Alara held her ground, her knuckles white as she gripped the little wooden bird in her pocket.
I live down there. I see you from my window sometimes. You looked lonely in the storm last night.
The ghost didn't move. It didn't make a sound. The silence was heavy, thick with a century of solitude and a moment of disbelief. Alara took a deep breath, pulled the wooden bird from her pocket and held it out.
I brought you something.
The ghost stared at the small wooden bird held in the girl's outstretched hand. Time seemed to stop. The wind died down. The world held its breath. The creature had never been offered anything but fear. It had never known a gesture that wasn't one of rejection. It took a hesitant, shuffling step forward, its mismatched legs moving with an uncertain grace. It was afraid. Not of the girl, but of what she represented. A hope so fragile it might shatter if the ghost moved too quickly or made the wrong sound. It was the most terrifying and wonderful moment of its long existence. Alara kept her hand steady, even as the ghost's strange, spindly fingers reached for the bird. Its fingers were cold, like stone from the bottom of a well, but their touch was surprisingly gentle. It didn't snatch the bird away. It carefully, delicately, lifted the small wooden carving from her palm. Its fingers lingered for a second, a silent, questioning touch that spoke more than words ever could. It was a touch that asked, "Is this real? Is this for me?" Alara didn't pull her hand back. She just smiled, a small, tentative smile. The ghost brought the bird closer to its sack-like head, tilting it back and forth as if examining it from every angle. It traced the smooth, carved wings with the tip of its finger. A new sound started to bubble up from within it, but it wasn't the sorrowful moan the townspeople knew. This was different. It was a soft, melodic hum, like the purring of a contented cat. It was a sound of wonder, of quiet joy. It was the sound of a frozen heart beginning to thaw after a long, lonely winter. Slowly, the ghost turned and shuffled back to its hollow log. It gently placed the wooden bird inside, next to the marble, the feather, the mitten. But this treasure was different. The others were things it had found. This was something that had been given. A gift. The ghost turned back to Alara, its lumpy head tilted in a gesture of unmistakable gratitude. It then did something she never expected. It reached out its long, spindly arm and pointed to a flat, mossy stone, a clear invitation for her to sit. It wanted her to stay. Alara sat on the mossy stone, her fear melting away and being replaced by a profound curiosity. The ghost sat on the ground across from her, its strange body folded awkwardly. For a long time, they just sat in silence, sharing the quiet of the old cemetery. Then, the ghost began to communicate. It couldn't speak with a mouth, but it spoke with its hands, with its body. with the very air around it. It pointed to its own lumpy head, and then made a motion like falling, followed by a gesture of sleeping on the ground. It was telling her how it came to be. It painted a story in the air, a story of a boy, long ago, a scarecrow maker's son who loved to build things. He was caught in a terrible accident, a fire in his father's workshop. As the ghost told its silent story, a soft light began to glow from within its sack-like head. It started as a faint flicker, like a distant firefly, but it grew steadily brighter. The light pulsed in time with the soft, purring hum that now replaced its mournful groan. It was as if the simple act of being seen, of being understood, was rekindling a light that had been extinguished long ago. The terrifying sackhead was no longer a void of darkness. It was a lantern, and Alara's kindness had just lit the candle inside. The ghost reached out and gently touched a wilting wildflower growing by a tombstone. As its glowing fingertip made contact, the flower straightened up, its petals unfurling and regaining their vibrant color. It was showing her its secret. Its true nature was not to scare or to harm, but to nurture. The loneliness had hidden its gift, but her friendship was allowing it to bloom again. The boy who loved to build things now had the power to mend them. The ghost, for the first time in a century, was not alone. It was sharing its world, its true world, with someone who was not afraid to see it. Alara returned to the hill the next day, and the day after that. Their friendship grew in the quiet solitude of the cemetery. She would tell the ghost stories from her life in the town, and it would listen, its light glowing softly. It, in turn, would share its silent magic with her, making flowers bloom out of season. The scary sounds from Blackwood Hill stopped. The sorrowful moan was replaced by a gentle hum that only those with a kind heart, like Alara, could hear if they listened closely. And though he was a ghost with a terrible head and a mismatched body, he had the warmest, kindest heart in all of Oakhaven. The shadow on the hill had found its light.